We are recapping Week 10 with a big day from Kyler Murray, and maybe enough points out there for you to make up if you were playing against Jamar Chase. Be curious to know if anybody was able to come back and beat Jamar Chase this week. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, and Heath Cummings. We'll have Jamey Eisenberg joining us later in the show. Who was the highest scoring non-quarterback on Sunday?
Was it Bijan?
Yeah, I'm just looking now. I have no idea. Yes, it was Bijan, Dave.
Yes, Dave.
It was Bijan. Who was second?
Oh, Calvin Ridley.
I think he's
Garbage
third.
time touchdown.
I think he's third. I think he's a half a point behind Marquez, Valdez, Scantling, baby. Both of them right around 25 PPR fantasy points. What's up, guys? How was Sunday for you?
Yeah,
me
it was
too.
a pretty lame day.
I had one of those weeks where on a personal level, I'm flying. My fantasy teams, a couple of them are in the tank, but the rest of them are doing really well. My picks on the site are doing really well. Player props, I don't want to talk about them, but man, did I mess up on my quarterback rankings this week, man. So rough week there for me personally, but I did think that we got some really good football overall. I think a lot of defenses showed us who they were this week. Some defenses played really well, shut down some good offenses. Pittsburgh is an example. And then some defenses, they're done. Like the Jets are done. They looked awful. Other defenses, we'll talk about them throughout the show, just don't look as good as they once did. New Orleans bounced back after they got their fired. But like, there's a lot to talk about with the matchups moving forward for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, and Dave, by the way, you talked about his quarterback rankings. Dave is feeling very let down by Daniel Jones today, and I
feel like you.
I'd like to welcome you to the club.
Yeah.
It's about
Guess what? I'm quitting this club.
Yes.
The next time I even think about ranking Daniel Jones anywhere where there's a 1 in front of the number, just kick me you know where.
Yeah, nope, I will.
I deserve it. I feel like I've gotten that.
All right, Heath, let's spin it positive here. Who's the number one biggest winner of Week 10?
I think what I sent to you kind of expresses my feelings on it. I sent 2 losers. I could have given you 7 losers. And initially I sent question marks for winners because it was, and part of that's because Dave and Jamey sent theirs in first. But if I was going with a biggest winner, I'd probably go with Jauan Jennings. That's who Jamey sent in. Led the 49ers in targets in his first game back, put up 16 PPR fantasy points without scoring a touchdown. Man, as long as he's healthy, it looks like a number 2 wide receiver. We weren't sure that we'd get that from him, so that's great.
I think you actually sent the word woof for winners, and I put that in the notes, and then you changed it and you gave some real names. You gave Calvin Ridley.
Calvin Ridley had a good game with Will Levis, so that's nice. And he had a good fantasy day. In fact, probably a great fantasy day before that garbage time touchdown.
Yeah.
The garbage time touchdown made him almost as good as Marquez Valdez-Scantling, so that's pretty exciting.
I asked Dave on FFT Express, do you think you'd rank Calvin Ridley ahead rest of season than Davante Adams, Malik Nabers, CeeDee Lamb, Brian Thomas Jr.? Yeah.
Maybe Brian Thomas Jr. And maybe Davante Adams. No chance Malik Nabers.
Or Lamb?
Or Lamb.
Okay. Dave, who's the biggest loser this week?
Well, I mean, throw a dart, hit a wide receiver. Nabers was terrible.
Daniel Jones can't do that.
Yeah. Neither can Cooper Rush. CeeDee Lamb was terrible. Aaron Rodgers threw to Davante Adams 13 times, and Davante Adams did not have 10 PPR points. It's against Arizona. Cardinals deserve credit, man. That's a defense that's showing us who they really are, and they're getting better. And then just you could throw a second dart against any Chicago pass catcher. They're all losers too. That whole offense is broken. But to me, that's where the losers begin and end, is with those stud wide receivers.
It is really hilarious that it was just the conventional wisdom that we should draft 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds this year because wide receiver was the clear and obvious way to play fantasy football.
Yeah, I think we said this morning, right? I mean, we told people to zig while others were zagging. We like the running back value. And this was the first time I remember asking you guys when we were doing the preview, how do you feel about running back? And we were, you guys said, I don't mind it this year. I'll take it. If the running backs keep falling, we'll do it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's tough with those wide receivers. They've been struggling. Who worries you the most, you think? If we look at that big four of Lamb, Nabers, Thomas, Adams, Brian Thomas. Thomas.
They all worry me to huge degrees. I would say Thomas the most, followed by Lamb, then Javonte, and Nabers is last. But still, they're all. Beetlejuice's face turns into a million scorpions. Scary. That's how scary they are.
Oh man, I watched some good scary movies last night. Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2 on back-to-back. It was great. People say, yeah.
Should we give a real quick, like, I know a lot of people are going to listen to this on Monday, but like who you could pick up for Nico?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because like a lot of people probably are scrambling to find I think the first choice is hope you can find DeMarcus Robinson, who was available in 25% of leagues last time that I looked. I don't know if you do, Dave. I don't like any of the Texans wide receivers. I might just throw a dart at Dalton Schultz catching a touchdown pass.
Right, because that's worked out well all year. But I mean, what are you looking for to replace Nico Collins? Obviously, you just want somebody who's going to score points.
Someone who is available that will score the most points.
Okay, so if you've got Nico and you have him in a flex spot, for example, I would pick Jonnu Smith before I pick Dalton Schultz. Jonnu is on the Dolphins. He plays on Monday against the Rams. I think he's going to play, and his upside would be even greater if Tyreek Hill did not end up playing in that game. If you've got Nico in a wide receiver spot, here are your options. On the Texans, Xavier Hutchinson plays a lot, doesn't get a lot of targets. Robert Woods, John Mechie, they don't play as much. They might get 3 targets each. On the Monday night game, DeMarcus Robinson is like gold if you can find him. If you can't get him, you're looking at like Odell Beckham, who either he or Malik Washington will end up playing more in place of Tyreek Hill being out. Washington is more fun than Odell Beckham. But he's been playing as much as Beckham the last 2 weeks. He has 0 targets. This is just you're in a bad spot with Nico Collins.
I might prefer hoping for a Khalif Raymond or Tim Patrick touchdown.
You can go that route too, but those guys aren't going to play as much if Jameson Williams is back in his old role.
I like that though. All right, news and notes. Quarterback news. Kyler Murray set a Cardinals record. I don't know how long it extended, but he set it at 17 straight completions. I'm not sure if he passed that or not, but he set a record with at least 17 straight completions. Joe Flacco will remain the quarterback for the Colts. Carolina did not commit to a starting quarterback as they go into their bye. By the way, Flacco will be at the Jets next week. Running back news. So this was a good day for injuries, and like there were some scares, but most people came back in. But Tank Bigsby came back in, and then he left. So Tank Bigsby is hurt right now. Jamey Eisenberg is not hurt. He joins the show. Hey, Jamey.
Thanks for waiting for me.
I thought... I didn't know he was supposed to. Aaron Jones left, but then he came back. But the thing with Jones is, like he said, basically his adrenaline let him go back in the game. So he's got injured ribs. We'll see how that plays out. Cam Akers clearly playing ahead of Ty Chandler in this game. Najee Harris left, but he came back. Miles Sanders did not come back. He was carted off, so that might be a serious injury for Miles Sanders. They go into their bye, and then Jonathan Brooks will be back. Wide receiver, Malik Nabers left with a head injury, and then he came back. He's also dealing with a hamstring. I think the bye comes at a good time for Malik Nabers. And Jalen McMillan did not play a snap for Tampa Bay. And then the other big injury, so it's Bigsby and it's Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid left with a knee injury. He briefly came back, and he just wasn't good enough to go. So they have the Chiefs next week, who terrible against tight ends, but they may not face Dalton Kincaid. As if the Bears needed to lose another offensive lineman, Tevin Jenkins left with an ankle injury in the second quarter. Tristan Wirfs, left tackle for the Bucs. He may have a sprained MCL as they have a bye this week than the Giants. Okay, we had... Oh, wait, I got to get the soundbite up. We had Jacksonville defensive end. I don't know where it is. Eric Armstead leave with an injury. He was evaluated for concussion. Oh, Alex Highsmith for the Steelers. He left in the fourth quarter, edge rusher for them. And that's pretty much it. All right, we're going to take a break here. We'll do some buy or sell when we come back. Buy or sell. Jamie's a little mad at me for not waiting for him.
I'm not mad. I'm just kidding.
Okay, sell. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
CBS Sports HQ, giving you college football coverage unlike anyone else.
We're talking Big Ten.
Pre- and post-game coverage.
Are you encouraged with the way that this team responded?
Along with breaking news,
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
highlights, and expert analysis.
That streak could be in jeopardy here.
What was your main takeaway from this game? How impressive was his domination?
That really changed the football game.
Let's go ahead and have some more fun.
Another wild ending.
The chaos continues.
Turn to CBS Sports HQ.
Do some buy or sell. This is from Twitter. Thank you for producing the show for me, people out there. Julio Pena says, buy or sell Javonte Williams. 1 carry for 1 yard is droppable.
Bye. As in
I
bye.
won't feel that confident that they're going to do the same thing 2 weeks in a row running back. I'd probably try to hold on to him, but if you had to drop him, I think it's okay.
Kyle Myers says, buy or sell Tyrone Tracy. Rest of season and way too early running back ranking for next season. Tyrone Tracy.
What was the buy or sell?
Well, they didn't really, I'm going to say, I appreciate the effort, but the buy or sells, they weren't great. They weren't a lot of statements, but it's basically just buy or sell Tyrone Tracy.
Very good number 2 running back rest of season and a number 2 running back for next year too, depending on what the team looks like.
Yeah. I mean, poor kid.
Oh, with the fumble, yeah.
I mean,
Right.
No, he understood the assignment.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, not just the fumble either, like the interception too.
That
He
was
did
not,
everything he could to give that game to him.
right.
that was not him.
If a ball hits you in both of your hands 10 feet away from the quarterback,
but-
the other team gets it, it's on you.
But first off, he made a good play, and Daniel Jones got to make a breath throw.
Yeah, that's the
But he got the call. He got the call from upstairs.
that's the biography of Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has to make a better throw.
Fumble. Give him the ball.
Yeah,
Fumble.
give him the ball in the field goal range already. All right, well,
Those are tears of joy because he knows he's getting the first pick next year.
I could have used it on a running. They probably used it on a running back. Anyway, Tyrone Tracy, 75% started. He makes big plays. If he doesn't make a big play, then you could be in trouble. But he tends to do that. 103 yards and a touchdown at Carolina. I will say I'm concerned that other than that one game where he did not have Malik Nabers, he doesn't really catch the ball. Especially definitely doesn't catch the ball in this game. But this was a joke about the interception. All right, whatever. I'm done rambling here. Buy or sell from Cat Dad. Lad McConkey should be on your bench until further notice.
Bye.
By that.
Again, I would not be surprised at all if Lad McConkey has 5 for 70 and a touchdown next week. So, I mean, there's 4 teams on a bye. The wide receiver position is absolutely atrocious. He's a number 3.
And the Chargers get Gus Edwards back, and it's a turn back the clock game to weeks 1 through 3, and they just run like crazy, and Justin Herbert barely throws.
Yeah, 18 pass attempts. You can't judge.
18 passes, a third of them going to Will Dissly.
I guess you can't judge anyone too harshly if this quarterback throws 18 passes, but it was really 2 targets.
We got a shootout though next week though.
Yeah.
The Bengals, I think we're starting Lad McConkey.
Is it a shootout or do the Chargers keep it kind of low scoring?
I think they'll try and keep it low scoring.
Their next 3 games are Cincinnati, Baltimore, and at Atlanta. So
They'll try to run the ball. They want to score a lot of points, but they'll try and do it throwing plenty.
You also have the look-ahead game for them next week.
the look-ahead game for them. Oh,
yeah, I mean, another matchup. Yeah.
All right. Now, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM, folks, let's get doing that. Let's get to doing that here. Use the bonus code FANTASY, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. I think the Giants, by the way, were favored for the first time in 24 games today. See how long they go before the next time.
I think it was 30 games that they had on the broadcast.
I don't think so. Okay, so this is from Seahawks across the pond. Sell Tony Pollard. Sell Jayden Reed. Sell Jayden Daniels. He's very upset right now, Seahawks across the pond.
I think you missed your sell window on the first two guys, and I'm not selling Jayden Reed.
Agreed. What did Jayden Reed do to get the sell high treatment?
I'm just saying, if you're looking to sell him, you missed your window to sell him.
Sure. But I'm surprised someone's throwing him in on a week where he didn't play.
I would not sell your starters right after their worst games.
Right.
That's a good point.
Jaden Daniels has basically been scoring 25 points per game most weeks, but he could be a little bit more selfish near the goal line, right?
Oh, I mean, well, first off, Diami Brown catch the ball.
Yeah.
Yes.
Noah Brown catch the ball.
Mm-hmm.
That would help too. Yeah. But three touchdowns, I think, from 1 yard away or something, or right around 1 yard away for the running backs. As far as Pollard goes, though, that's what I did want to talk about here, because the 2 games before the injury, or like the game before the injury and then the game of the injury, the running back carries were fairly even, maybe 60-40. And then while Spears is out, the coaching staff says we've got to take some of the work off of Tony Pollard. So he only had 9 carries. This was a bad game for them. They were trailing the whole time. He only had 9 carries. He had 4 catches. Spears had 7 carries, I think. 7 carries and 3 catches. But
yeah.
Do we feel like Pollard is the top 20 running back going forward?
He'd be close to it. One thing to note is that Spears played almost all the snaps in the fourth quarter. So they're down big. They've got their offense on the field designed to throw the ball, so they're passing a lot. Pollard's not in them. So that definitely takes away from Pollard being a workhorse type of running back. He needs a competitive game script in order for him to get the workload that we want.
He did get banged up early in this game, and he also had 4 targets in the game and caught all of them, which is more than Spears. So I think he still got plenty of a passing game role.
This was a bad matchup going in. I don't know where you guys had him ranked. He was just inside the top 24 for me, so I was a little concerned. It also, I think, to your point, Heath, about him getting banged up, he's missed practice basically for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So whether it's just rest and they know something's going on, or there is legitimately something going on, something is clearly bothering him, or they just feel like they can't practice him at all. But there's going to be much better situations for him. There will be better situations for him moving forward. This was as tough a matchup as he'll have.
That's Tony Pollard. All right, and Joey says, this, I guess we already talked about this, but stud wide receivers can't be relied upon with their current quarterback situations. He cited Nabers, Brian Thomas Jr., and CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
I was of the opinion that of those 3 plus Davante Adams, I was the least worried about Adams, but it doesn't seem like you guys necessarily share that opinion. So if we looked at Adams, Nabers, Brian Thomas Jr., CeeDee Lamb, who are you least worried about in that group of 4?
Nabers.
I'll say Nabers as well, but that doesn't mean I'm not worried.
I'd say Nabers and Lamb are the 2 that I'm just really not even thinking about and still starting. Thomas and Adams, we'll see.
Doesn't Adams have clearly the best quarterback, though? I'm sorry. I know he's not great, but he's clearly the best quarterback.
He does, as of now.
I'm more worried about CeeDee Lamb than I am about Davante Adams.
Yeah, I hear that, because his quarterback situation is really rough. And for what it's worth, can we overlook the numbers for Davante Adams and just focus on the targets and say, okay, every week his BFF is going to throw him 10 plus targets, and at some point he's going to produce, and maybe that'll make you feel.
Well, I mean, look, he's batting 250 right now with the Jets, so it's ugly. But they get the Colts this week. Who's sitting him against the Colts? Like he said, there's 4 teams on a bye. Receivers been really beat up. It's the same with all these guys, but if you look at it, yes, I think the one concern with Nabers would be, as we discussed going into the game, that if they lose going into their bye week, is Daniel Jones done?
And do you guys think that would be a bad thing for him?
I don't know. I would say it's a slight downgrade, because Drew Lock has not played well in the limited time that we've seen him with the Giants in the preseason. He's banged up, and then had the fumble when he came in garbage time a few weeks ago. But without Andrew Thomas there, plus no Daniel Jones, they're all getting downgraded.
Yeah.
Start versus trust, or start versus expectations, I think, are 2 different things. Like, to Heath's point, nobody's benching these guys unless you just have stacked rosters. You just can't. So there will be a fantasy manager with Cedric McMillan in every league, and Jauan Jennings in every league. And, these guys that were either picked up off waivers in recent weeks or just sitting on your bench that you're going to have to make some tough calls on. And you might be starting them over some of these guys. But I think, again, I'm not sitting Davante Adams against the Colts. I'm probably not sitting CeeDee Lamb against the Texans. I'm probably not sitting Nabers on a bye. Who was the fourth one?
Brian Thomas Jr. against the Lions.
Yeah, I mean, it's just he's the one that makes me the most nervous.
Yeah.
All right. And Dave and I did FFT Express, and we both expressed that if you want to throw DJ Moore in this group, he is like that one you can sit. I don't know how you could have any confidence in DJ Moore at this point, unless anyone disagrees with that.
Playing Carolina again anytime soon?
I don't think so.
I don't know if that's such a good thing for him, even if he did. Wasn't good for
playing the Packers next week. You can sit him.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
That offensive line's a disaster right now.
Yes, it is. Winners and losers. We go to Jamey's winners. We talked briefly about Jauan Jennings, but I'll let you talk about him too. Kyler Murray, 51% started, scores 30.7 fantasy points in basically 3 quarters against the Jets. And he had a touchdown pass called back, and that ended in a James Conner touchdown run. This was I don't know. It got to be up there among the best games he's ever played. 22 of 24, 266 yards and a touchdown, plus a rushing touchdown. I think am I missing a touchdown? Did he throw 2 touchdowns?
He threw 2 touchdowns.
And a rushing? Yeah, it was amazing.
No, 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing.
2 rushing, 1 passing.
Okay.
Yes.
He also set the franchise record for consecutive completions. I waffled a little bit on where I had him ranked, but I thought he was going to play well. As I said to, I think, Dave this morning, or on Friday, the Jets had allowed the 3 previous quarterbacks prior to C.J. Stroud, and it's the combination of the Patriots guys. It was Josh Allen and Russell Wilson. 3 of those guys had scored 19.9 fantasy points or more, or 3 of those teams, and all 3 of those quarterbacks ran for touchdowns. All 3 of those groups ran for touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And so here comes Kyler. As I was hoping, if he was going to run, he was going to have a decent day. And the Jets gave up in this game. I mean, the tackling was terrible.
Yeah.
If you watched, there was a play late in the third quarter. Kyler is running out of bounds. He slides before he goes out of bounds. It's basically like you just want to keep the clock running because he knew that this game was over. It was that bad for the Jets. I think it's, you look at Kyler's season, and it's been a little weird about how he's performed. Like the Bears game, okay, that's a defense that has done well against quarterbacks. You say, okay, that was an awful performance. You could chalk it up to the opponent. The way their schedule shapes up moving forward, I think he's just an auto start.
Yeah, I hope so. And then Jauan Jennings, is he an auto start?
He's pretty close. Seattle's defense obviously not one to fear. So you're looking at week 11 as definitely starter in 3 receiver leagues. I would assume with the way Brock Purdy's playing without Brandon Ayuk there, it's now 4 games this season with 5 games this season with 5+ targets. 4 of those he's been 11.4 PPR points or more. And so to me, that's the floor. And that's a, low end number 3 receiver going in with the chance to be what he was today. So I think the setup is there for him to be a go-to guy in this offense and, kind of to play that Brandon Ayuk role, but do it a little bit more successfully than Brandon Ayuk was doing it this year, just based on how unlucky Ayuk was. So he'll be in the number 2 receiver mix more often than not.
When Ayuk was in that role and doing great things, it's yards after catch. That's the whole name of the game for this passing offense. Ayuk was getting that done, maybe not necessarily this year, but just generally with speed. In this game, Jennings was doing it with physicality. Like he made a great effort on a catch on first down, added a bunch of yards after the catch. That put San Francisco past midfield. That was in the first half. His catch and run put San Francisco inside the 30 to help set up their game-winning field goal. Obviously, you could look in the box score, see that he had 11 targets, 7 catches, 93 yards. I think he's here to stay. I think he's going to be one of those top 30 minimum wide receivers moving forward.
So I think the only thing to keep in mind, because it's now back-to-back weeks, DeAndre Hopkins against Tampa Bay, Jauan Jennings against Tampa Bay. In both situations, they were picking on Hayes, not their nickel corner, their third-string corner. So the Chiefs did a good job of doing this, and the 49ers did a good job of doing this. Again, Seattle's defense, I don't think, is one to fear. And Brock Purdy is playing fantastic this season, and now he's getting everybody healthy. So I just don't want to overvalue Jennings for this game because, like I said about Hopkins, Adam, you kept asking me what's the difference, and I kept telling what two words: Tampa Bay. It's the same thing. It's Tampa Bay. So don't get crazy. Like, don't make crazy offers for Jauan Jennings. Try and sell him. If you can sell him high for somebody that you think has got better potential moving forward, do so for sure. But I think Jennings is in a good spot. I just don't think like you should expect this consistently.
No, but number 3 receiver for sure.
Yeah. All right, Dave, let's go to your winners. TJ Hockenson, 46% started, 8 catches, 72 yards on 9 targets at Jacksonville for Hockenson. And Courtland Sutton, 52% started, 6 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets at Kansas City. Who, again, I gave that stat on the when we previewed the game. They don't get beat on passes of 14 or more air yards or whatever the stat was, whatever Courtland Sutton's ADOT was. And they got beat today. So Hockenson and Sutton come through, and give me your thoughts.
This was a nice bounce back game for Bo Nix after he wasn't awesome last week. And this is his number 1 receiver in Courtland Sutton. I had him ranked as a number 2 receiver. I think I think he's a borderline number 2 receiver. Certainly he will be during the bye weeks that are coming up here. So I just think you just roll with him. It was really good to see TJ Hockenson back looking like he did last year. Short area target for the Vikings quarterback and just coming through with a real good game in PPR and a not bad game in non-PPR. Totally sapped targets away from everybody in this offense, except for Justin Jefferson. They each had 9. And I kind of believe that he can be the number 2 target getter for the Vikings rest of the season.
Okay, Heath, your winners, Bijan Robinson, who now has 5 straight games with 21.5 or more PPR fantasy points, and Calvin Ridley, who was only started in 39% of leagues. I think a couple weeks ago on Beyond the Box Score, I talked about him having a great schedule. I hope I did, because what a schedule for Calvin Ridley coming up. But go ahead and talk about Bijan and Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, Bijan, 144 yards from scrimmage, scored 2 rushing touchdowns. If you're a Bijan fantasy manager, you loved that series where Tyler Algier gets stuffed once, twice, 3 times at the 1-yard line, and then they give it to Bijan. He scores the touchdown. Since week 5, Bijan Robinson has scored 18 more PPR fantasy points than any other running back in fantasy football. He could absolutely be the best running back in fantasy football rest of season. Don't be surprised if he is.
All right, that is awesome. And do you think Calvin Ridley is Calvin Ridley or Jauan Jennings?
He is. I was going to say he is right in the Jauan Jennings territory. On a week-to-week basis, it's probably going to be for me like their matchup and their Vegas implied total that determines it. They're both going to be boom bust number 3s who have weeks as high in number 2s and weeks where you're like, why did I start that guy? But it was great to see Ridley really have a pretty fantastic day with Will Levis. Beat them deep multiple times. You're going to hate it when you look at the ADOT. I think it was 16, which is what he does with Will Levis. But he's one of the when he's right, he's one of the best in the NFL at doing that.
Yeah, but actually, like it had been about 20 or 21 or something like that with Will Levis. So
it's actually lower.
16 is, you don't want a guy having a 16-yard ADOT on a weekly basis. You're not going to find a single wide receiver in the NFL that's good with that kind of ADOT. Good for fantasy. But 16 is better than 20. Okay, we'll take a break and come back and talk about 2 losers from each of our guys here after this on Fantasy Football Today.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance, but you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
We start with Heath's losers, Javonte Williams, who had 15 or more touches in 5 of his last 6 games and had 3 touches in this game at Kansas City. And J.K. Dobbins, he did have 18 touches, and he gave just inches short of a touchdown. Anyway, Javonte and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I think Javonte is more obvious. Like, they just went to Audric Estime as a rusher this week. The only reason I wouldn't say Javonte is dead is because it was efficiency-wise the worst that Estime has been all year because it was a terrible matchup. And so if he has one more game like that, I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Payton changes the ways he's distributing running back touches again. I still think Javonte is probably the predominant pass-catching back if they stop the Marvin Mims stuff, which they did a lot more of this week. Mims had 3 carries and caught the ball out of the backfield a lot, which cut into also Javonte. Dobbins is the one that's less obvious looking at the box score, but Gus Edwards looked like the best he has all year for sure. And Dobbins had a 62% rush share for the 5 weeks that Edwards was not there, 38% this week, which is a disaster. If we go back to anything close to the 50-50 rush share, then I think Dobbins is an RB2 at best.
You want to hear the grossest part about that? Gus played a quarter of the snaps for the Chargers.
But basically every time he was in there, he got a carry.
And he was really good with them. And then, of course, as we've seen people talking about in the chat, when he did get tackled at the 1-inch line, they didn't give it to Gus. They gave it to Hassan Haskins.
That's right. Yeah. So basically what we're saying about the Chargers backfield in this game. They get Cincinnati next week, then Baltimore. Dave, your losers were Kirk Cousins. It's just such a Kirk Cousins game. It's just fumbles, doesn't see the pressure coming. This guy doesn't see the pressure coming off the edge like no one else. And how do you? He's so good the last couple weeks, and then lays this egg at New Orleans, and also Malik Nabers, who we've talked about. But yeah, Kirk Cousins at Denver, and then a bye. Oh goodness, Dave, could we drop Kirk Cousins?
It's on the table. I don't think you have to commit to him, certainly as your starter, and you can go shopping for another quarterback depending on who's on your waiver wire. You might feel more comfortable with, for example, Russell Wilson, who's taking on the Ravens next week, and Russ just had 3 touchdowns on Sunday. But anytime he's under pressure, under duress, he's a mess. And it actually turned out to be good games for his pass catchers, certainly in PPR, but 23 of 38, just over 300 yards, no touchdowns. That's really the whole big thing, is that he didn't throw any touchdowns. He was sacked 3 times. I was thinking that the offensive line would be a little bit better than it was, and I don't think we necessarily saw that. I'm a little nervous now moving forward with Cousins.
My biggest question from that game was, like, was this the Saints turning things around, or was just the one game?
I think
Dennis Allen's not here, and so we're gonna go like, because they played well today, but they'd been the worst team in the NFL over the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah. How many of those did Carr play just last week? Because they weren't a good team, but then they lost Carr, then they lost Shaheed, then they kept losing Olave. They really did lose a lot.
Their offensive line lost pieces.
Yeah,
no more Lattimore.
Yep. Yeah, they lost. Was Alante Taylor, I think, out for the season?
Yep.
They lost some really key pieces, so they are quite depleted. It's good.
No,
good
it's
team
Debo that they lost for the Debo.
Oh, Debo. Okay, Paul's on Debo. Sorry, I always get them confused. And Jamey, your losers were Sam Darnold. Wow, this game, man. What the total yardage in this game was 402 to 143. And it came down to a penalty at the end of the game. But Sam Darnold scored like 6 points. And who was your other loser? Sorry, I have it here. Was Sam Darnold and DJ Moore. Okay, go ahead.
I don't want to drop DJ Moore, but I don't want to start DJ Moore anytime soon. Unless we find out tomorrow that Shane Waldron and or Matt Eberflus are fired, which will not be surprising at this point. Then hopefully things will change for Caleb Williams and DJ Moore. But Darnold, this was the downside of Sam Darnold. Look, he was very inefficient and erratic and turnover prone, and that's not fun to watch when you have players like he has surrounding him. So, when you take on Jacksonville, you're expecting a huge day for their quarterback. I know I had high expectations for Darnold. I'm sure everybody did that started him, and just hopefully he doesn't turn back into a pumpkin.
I'm sorry. I wanted to bring up one thing. We didn't bring up Kirk Cousins' schedule, did we?
We did.
We did?
Well, you said his next 2 weeks, which is
after though. Because, okay, then he gets the Chargers, but he finishes with Minnesota, Raiders, Giants, Commanders. It's a pretty good schedule to finish the season for Cousins.
Oh, revenge game.
I just want people to think about that. Yeah. Minnesota and Washington. Just to think about that with Cousins. He does have a really favorable schedule down the stretch. All right. Any almost touchdowns that we need to talk about? David Moore for the Panthers had one called back. Josh Downs dropped a touchdown, probably a touchdown. Josh Allen missed Dalton Kincaid, was wide open for what would have been a touchdown. Trey McBride dropped a touchdown, and that was followed by Kyler Murray scoring a rushing touchdown. Will Dissly dropped a touchdown. De'Ami Brown dropped a touchdown. James Conner had that one overturned. I mentioned that, but then he scored on the next play. Devontae Adams dropped a touchdown. It may have been deflected, though.
Oh, it was deflected.
Kamara. I don't know if he would have scored because he could have just slid and ended the game. But
So wide open.
that was like, that could have been a 55-yard touchdown if you wanted it to be. Patrick Mahomes missed Travis Kelce wide open in the end zone.
Yep.
And I mentioned the J.K. Dobbins.
Did you mention Taysom Hill?
No, and I still haven't seen that play. What happened?
Short pass from Derek Carr, 88 yards to the end zone, called back by holding.
How did I not see that? Okay, here it is.
Literally the first play of the game.
Oh, that's why I missed it.
Mooney had one.
Okay. Heath, what was your reaction to let's play it again? All right. Lining up for the 35-yard field goal or whatever. This is it. The undefeated season's over. Oh, it's blocked. It's blocked. What was your reaction?
It was dumb. Like they should have lost that game. Like, it was really poorly played game. I was really hoping that was the game that Andy Reid, one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, would finally learn that you don't kick field goals from the 2 anymore. But they won, so I don't think he's going to learn anything, and they'll continue to kick field goals from the 2.
They did go for it on 4th and goal from about there, right? And scored a touchdown.
Yes.
Yeah, it worked. All right, let's go to the games in Germany, not London. It was the game of the week, the Das Spiel der Woche, or whatever it was. Carolina 20, Giants 17 in overtime. I think we've exhausted this one from the Giants standpoint. We've talked about Nabers and Tracy, but Jamey, Chuba Hubbard, huge game, 28 carries, 153 yards and a touchdown and 4 catches. He did fumble. They get the bye. Then we're going to get Jonathan Brooks, Chuba Hubbard, or Tony Pollard rest of season.
Hubbard. Look, it's nice to see the Panthers, turning the corner a little bit with Bryce Young and playing better. How much of it was taking on the Saints and the Giants in back-to-back weeks? We'll see. Those were favorable matchups. But I think in the case of Hubbard, we got a little scare, on the play they fumbled. He got banged up a little bit. So thankfully he was okay. And you mentioned Miles Sanders getting carted off. So that gives the path for Jonathan Brooks to, get some semblance of touches. I don't think he's going to ruin Chuba Hubbard like I had anticipated when he was going to start to come back. Mostly because of the contract extension now. They're clearly committed to Hubbard being a big part of their present and their future. But it could impact him a little bit. But look, I mean, he's been so good. We discussed, I think, this morning, right, on the live stream, that is he the best pick of the season? Best value pick of the season?
One of the conversation. One.
Yep. So should continue to be a very solid number 2 running back at worst moving forward.
I remember when I was like, man, who's the better one to get, Chuba Hubbard or Jerome Ford? I don't know where I landed. I don't think I drafted either of them, but they were basically in the same situation, right? One of them has had a pretty different season. All right, let's go to our next game here. Unless you guys have anything now, let's just go to our next game. Buffalo 30, Indianapolis 20. Heath, do you think that there's anything to talk about from this game? Oh, no, let's talk about, they're sticking with Flacco. So you've got Alec Pierce with 7 targets, 4 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown. You got Adonai Mitchell, 6 for 71 on 6 targets. Obviously Downs with another big game. He always has it with Flacco. Are you going to be looking at Mitchell or Pierce on waivers with the Jets on tap?
I don't want to. I'm hoping that he comes to his senses. Like he said, Joe Flacco's the starter until I say otherwise. Like he might wake up tomorrow and realize how foolish this all is and just try to develop a quarterback. But if they start Joe Flacco, I think I had Pierce ranked at like wide receiver 40 this week. It looks early on like next week might be worse than this week. So maybe Pierce is wide receiver 35 next week. 80 Mitchell's wide receiver 40. They'll be in that range. But they're not going to be guys that I want to start.
Right. So I think just for the standpoint of the quarterback, like next week is probably the make or break week for them, because you beat the Jets, you're 5-6, you're still in it. You lose to the Jets, you're 4-7, and now you're starting to see maybe some teams pull ahead of you. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but just looking at how the standings are shaking out with the teams that are still ahead of them, and Bengals being in the mix with them also. But in terms of the receivers, we don't know what Michael Pittman's going to do, or when he's going to return. That's a big part of it. So I know when we'll meet again on Tuesday, we're going to talk about both those guys. I would give a slight lean toward Pierce also, but it's just a matter of can you really like invest heavily in them? Like the matchup against the Jets is not anything to fear. They're terrible defensively right now. So
they should fire their head coach.
Dave asked Prisco that, has anybody fired an interim head coach? And Pete said he thinks it's happened before, but they've gotten worse defensively since they got rid of Solids. It's just awful. And then if you watch them tackle today, like they gave up in the third quarter. I just wonder if Flacco is the type of quarterback to take advantage of this defense right now.
Didn't he do it last year on a Thursday night with the Browns? Wasn't that like we were nervous to start him and they had a huge game?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
He had a pretty big game because it was in that stretch of him having a big game every single week. But
right.
things.
Yeah, I think
that well.
I think it's probably going to end up being like a coin toss of which receiver does better. But I would just again lean toward Pierce just based on his role is kind of locked in.
More experience too. He's been around a little bit longer. Doesn't make as many mistakes as Mitchell. Right now, Houston's 6-3. We don't know the result of their game against Detroit because it hasn't happened yet. If they lose, they're 6-4. Indy's 4-6. So maybe the division is still in reach for Indy. And then if you look at the playoff picture right now in the AFC, they're the 8th seed. Not that there's an 8th seed. There are only 7 teams make the playoffs, but they probably still feel like they're in contention. So
that's what I'm saying. Like next week feels like a kind of this decisive game for them in terms of if they lose, do they make the quarterback switch?
Unless like crazy situation, Houston also loses this week and next week, and Cincy loses next week. Like there's things that could still keep them believing that they're in the playoff hunt, and that would keep Flacco on the field.
Sure.
Inevitably, we're going to see Anthony Richardson again. And when we do, all these receivers, except maybe Downs, we're just not going to feel good starting.
Joe Flacco, week 17, fantasy championship going up against the Jets. 19 of 29, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns for 28.7 fantasy points last year. All right, New Orleans 20, Atlanta 17. We talked about Cousins. We talked about Bijan. London and Mooney, you're just going to keep starting them. Is anybody getting concerned about Kyle Pitts to the point where you're thinking, it was a terrible game, by the way, 4 for 55 on 6 targets, but to the point where you're thinking, maybe I try to stream someone over Kyle Pitts?
Well, first off, who's Surtain covering next week?
Oh, London.
You would assume, right? So I wouldn't say it's an easy start.
All right. And then on the other side of the ball.
Yes, to answer your question, you can consider streaming somebody over Pitts.
Is there anyone? Sorry, go ahead, Heath.
No, I'm just saying, like, if we had a Kate Otten emerge, like that guy obviously moved ahead of Kyle Pitts. If it's just the weekly Hunter Henry, I'm probably just going to keep starting Kyle Pitts.
Right.
If T. Higgins is out again next week, I'm starting Gesicki over him.
That's fair.
I mean, Pitt's bad game today was better than Gesicki this week.
It's very true, but I'm still going to buy into what Gesicki has done and the offense he plays in.
Not that TJ Hockenson is a streaming option because he's already rostered. If you had Hockenson and Pitts, who are you starting next week?
Hockenson.
I think we were just waiting for one game for Hockenson to look like.
I feel the same way. What about Freiermuth if he's on your waiver wire?
Pitts.
Given the matchup for both, I would go with Freiermuth.
And then what about Austin Hooper, who had 3 catches for 64 yards?
No.
All right. So I don't know how many tight ends are on the waiver. Tucker Kraft might be on the waiver wire. Would you start him or Pitts?
Start Pitts.
Chicago?
All right. We can worry about that next week. Kansas City 16, Denver 14. Hey, Bo Nix, 20.6 fantasy points at Kansas City. Not bad. He's 62% rostered and gets the Falcons and the Raiders in his next 2 games. We talked about Sutton. What do you make of this Kareem Hunt game? What a strange game.
They couldn't run the ball, so they threw the ball to Kareem Hunt instead. He still had the same normal number of touches. I think he had 21 total touches in the game, but he was a winner because earlier this year it was, we're going to throw the ball to Samaje Perine, and they couldn't run it with him. So they just threw it to him.
How many little pop passes did they try with him?
I only saw 1, but I didn't see all of his catches.
I thought it was 2.
But he had 7 catches, Kareem Hunt, and I almost positive all of them came on 1st and 2nd down. He didn't play on 3rd down or anything like that, but it doesn't matter if you're throwing to the running back on 1st down or in 2nd down. But I just thought that was pretty interesting. Hopkins, honestly, like not that bad.
No.
What was his snap count, Dave?
I'll look it up. Give me 30 seconds.
Because I don't think he's played more than 70% of the snaps in any game this season. I'm just curious if he'll ever do it.
Yeah.
But 4 catches for 56 yards against the Broncos, not too bad.
You should probably just guess they're running when he's not on the field.
Yeah, it's probably a safe bet. 63%.
He doesn't need to run block.
Should we drop Xavier Worthy 89% rostered?
10-team leagues, yes. 12-team leagues. I would imagine if you see him on your waiver wire, you're probably picking him up just to see what happens.
Can you stomach him scoring a 32-yard reverse touchdown against the Bills on the waiver wire, like after you've dropped?
Oh yeah, that's the draft night trade.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to be okay with him scoring some dumb fluky touchdown and being better than whoever you're starting instead of him?
I'd be okay with that.
Then you can probably
be okay with it because I don't think that's sustainable week in and week out. Ricky Pearsall is available in like 60% of leagues.
Yeah,
I think I'm ready to make that switch.
I would make that switch.
Minnesota 12, Jacksonville 7. All right, Darnold with a dud. We talked about that. Aaron Jones, man, another good game, just couldn't score. Assume everyone's just going to continue to start him.
If he's healthy.
Well,
it was a good game and he missed a chunk of the game.
We're going to have to do a little waiver wire roulette with Cam Akers, most likely, because Aaron Jones is probably not going to practice early in the week. And then we'll find out if he's playing on Friday. So you're going to have to decide how much you want to spend on Cam Akers.
So what exactly happened with Jones? I know he got hurt in the third
Took a big shot to the ribs.
Okay.
And I think they're planning on doing tests tomorrow.
Okay. And then, Adam, you mentioned it. He came back on adrenaline. He really came back late in the fourth quarter in the game. So this is a wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay. What do we think about? I just want to wrap. Okay. You know what? We talked about Brian Thomas Jr., but what do we think about Evan Ingram? 6 catches for 40 yards on 8 targets. Is he a must-start tight end? He was started in 67% of leagues.
That's right.
Okay. San Francisco 23, Tampa Bay 20. And Brock Purdy was awesome. 27.8 fantasy points for him. Thoughts on McCaffrey? How many running backs would you take ahead of McCaffrey rest of season?
Not too many.
Bijan, Barkley, Henry.
Maybe.
That's it.
Joe Mixon. Would you?
H-N?
I don't think
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to answer for Mixer or H-N yet because they haven't played in week 10, but that's the range, I would say.
I think the other maybe is Kamara.
Yep.
He looked great. He really looked great. He had an out and up route for like 30 yards, just an awesome catch and run. And the playtime speaks for itself.
Is Deebo Samuel a must start? He had 5 catches for 62 yards on 6 targets. He had 3 carries for 14 yards.
Yes.
So he's somebody I'd be a little nervous about because of what Pearsall and Jennings were able to do. And again, granted, it is Tampa Bay, but they've almost reloaded on the fly with capable wide receivers. I mean, that's half the reason why Brock Purdy had such a huge game.
I can't sit him.
No chance.
Okay.
I don't think you can call him like a top 15 fantasy receiver.
Top 20.
Maybe. Somewhere in that range.
I would guess against Tampa Bay, he's going to be top 15 for me, but we'll see.
Okay.
He just played Tampa Bay. He was a top 15 wide receiver for me.
He plays Seattle.
Played Tampa Bay and was the 3rd best receiver on his team in fantasy points.
But it's one game.
Listen, I'm with you. How soon do defenses start to key in on Jennings and Pearsall? And
they're not keying in on Pearsall ever.
Of course not. But that's the point. Is that
I mean, again, you tell me a player in this offense is getting 8 touches weekly. I'm starting.
Just think about how
it's fair.
They had one of the lowest running back target rates in the NFL, and then McCaffrey had 6 catches today. Was it? So that's going to change, obviously. If Pearsall getting 6 targets was like kind of a punch in the gut for Deebo Samuel managers, I think. So it's like, I don't know. You guys probably feel the same way. It's like, I'm going to start him every week, pretty much. Yeah, I'm going to start him every week for now. I have definitely lowered my expectations, though.
You have to.
I thought he was going to be amazing, and he just hasn't really been. No, you haven't lowered your
I
expectations.
wouldn't. I would not be shocked at all if he scores 25 fantasy points.
Right.
Yeah, no, me either.
But I would imagine, I would guess that the majority of his games the rest of the year will be somewhere around 13 to 15 PPR points. And that's a number 2 receiver. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think one of the more interesting topics in fantasy right now is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running backs. Now, they are going into a bye, so we don't have to worry about this next week, but they got the Giants and the Panthers and the Raiders after that, right? They've got great matchups. But which one do you prefer? Rachaad White had 10 carries, 6 catches. He had 80 total yards. He had a touchdown. Bucky Irving had 13 carries, 3 catches. He had 87 total yards and a touchdown. They seem to be kind of matching each other. But like, who do you prefer, Jamey? Rachaad White or Bucky Irving? And are you confident in them going forward?
I told you this week that the schedule was about to be fantastic for them. So I give a slight lean toward White just because I think his role in the passing game is going to be a little bit safer. But I think you can end up starting both of them as borderline number 2 running back slash flex options during these matchups. The one thing that's going to, I think, slightly change for potentially both of them, maybe a negative for White and a positive for Irving, is Mike Evans' return takes a little bit of the pressure off of them to be such factors in the passing game. So I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it. It takes a little bit off of the upside of them.
Targets away from them.
Factors in the passing game. So Irving doesn't seem to need that as much as Rachaad White does. And so that's why I say it could be a little bit in the favor of Irving. But I think, again, just looking at the schedule, just looking at how they'll use these guys, it may be a little bit of okay, let's see what happens in week 12 if Evans does return, and there's no guarantee Evans is return at that point. But just based on how everything is lining up, like you can say it's like a potential Lions situation, where both guys are going to be productive.
New England 19, Chicago 3. This was a windy game for sure. I don't know how much of an effect that had, but it was probably not ideal throwing circumstances here. Okay, so is anybody willing to drop DJ Moore? Would you drop DJ Moore in a 2-receiver flex league?
How many teams in the league? 10?
12.
I think the better question's for who? Like for Ricky Pearsall? No.
For Jauan Jennings?
If you're in a 10-team league and DJ Moore is the worst player on your team and Jauan Jennings is there, you're dropping him for Jauan Jennings.
Agreed. He's droppable. I don't know if he's a spike cut just yet.
I just think there is the potential of coordinator and or coach getting fired, and that might help the situation because Shane Waldron has not been good for this offense, and Eberflus doesn't seem to have control of what's going on there, especially with like DJ Moore walking off the field last week and. Caleb Williams, again, part of it is the offensive line's a disaster. Like not having the tackles there. He's got a foot. He puts his back foot in the ground and there's, 3 guys in his face every time. So that's a big part of this. But, this was the concern with DJ Moore coming into the season was Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze and Cole Kmet and, somewhat of a pass catching running back, which has been the case at times with DeAndre Swift. Like there's a lot of mouths to feed. DJ Moore didn't have to deal with that last year. And so, it's not like he's got to be the focal point of the offense. So it's all just kind of a mess. But I do think like you could drop him and then coordinator fire.
All right. So we won't. Okay. Well, we'll see. If they're going to get fired, it's going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be on Wednesday. So we'll see.
Right.
Might be tonight.
So the other problem is that Caleb Williams continues to hold the ball way too long.
Yep.
And he's just way too flustered. Very rarely were there plays where he had good timing with his receivers. When he did, from what I saw, it was Keenan Allen that he had that connection with, not DJ Moore. Moore had a great catch to start the second half, fought for yardage, got 18 yards, but it's such a terrible situation. We really can't overstate how bad that offensive line. Hold on, I think I can overstate. I think I can perfectly state it. The New England Patriots had 9 sacks of Caleb Williams.
Jeez. That's unbelievable. Okay, so last thing on this game.
That tells you how bad the line is.
Ramondre Stevenson, maybe kind of a sneaky winner. He only had 1 catch, but he's like an every down back almost now.
72% of the snaps, almost every third down, all of their snaps inside the 5.
Pittsburgh 28, Washington 27. This game was awesome, a phenomenal football game. And another one that came down to a defensive penalty that eventually just ended the game. Heath, any major takeaways from Pittsburgh and Washington?
I mean, we'd seen some positive signs for George Pickens since Russ got there, but it was good to see Pickens have one of those monster 20-point games, and I think he's got bigger games to come.
Right, and he had those 2 touchdowns called back against the Giants, so if those hadn't happened, he'd be just on.
He might be a top 12 wide receiver rest of the season.
I think he can certainly pass by Nabers and Lamb, and you can feel better about it.
He has already.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, he was definitely ahead of Lamb for me this week.
Okay, Wilson Wilson himself is,
he's been playing great. He continued to
more
play
next week. Yes, 53% roster, and he has the Ravens next week. Beat the waiver wire.
Listen, I say he played great. He did complete 50% of his passes. There were some pressure issues, but he overcame
the touchdowns.
them.
He got saved by the touchdowns.
He got saved by the touchdowns, but the trait that he's shown are these deep passes to the sideline. Perfect placement every time. He did overthrow Pickens on one of them. That was his interception. So saved by the touchdowns, yes, but he has looked good really since coming back.
All right, Jayden Daniels, I don't think we have any concerns about that game that he had.
No, but pressure was a problem. I don't know if he'll see a pass rush this dangerous the rest of the season.
Got a tough matchup, though, Thursday night against the Eagles.
And Heath, you was very high on Austin Eckler coming into the game. He was only started in 48% of leagues, 14 touches, but he had the 2 touchdowns. So that was great. Do you think he – oh, I'm sorry. I don't have his stats right. I don't know how many.
I've got it. 13 of 44, 2 scores, 2 targets, 1 catch, 7 yards.
Oh, he had 14 All right. I was looking at his stats from his previous week, and it turns out he had the same amount of touches. I win. Do you think he affects Brian Robinson Jr.'s value if and when Brian Robinson Jr. comes back?
When Brian Robinson Jr. is healthy, no. I think Austin Eckler is a must-start running back when Brian Robinson's out, and Austin Eckler is a flex when Brian Robinson plays.
Okay.
He got really lucky with the touchdowns. One of them came after a muff punt.
Well, it's still he got
one harder.
Okay, you didn't get that lucky. Come on. That's not lucky.
How many total touches?
14.
Was a very
51 yards.
Very good starting caliber running back going into the week when Robinson was out.
All righty. So I think that's pretty much it. Terry McLaurin's the man. Noah Brown is someone we'll probably talk about on Tuesday because this is now 6 or more targets in 4 of his last 5 games, and he's 35% rostered.
Yeah, but it's a deeper league ad. He's not going to be added in 12-team leagues yet.
Chargers 27 and the Titans 17 as we go to the late window here. Will Levis with a good game. He had the garbage time touchdown to get up to 23 fantasy points. Does get Minnesota next week.
He looked better.
Good, yeah. And then Ridley, we really covered this game. We haven't talked about Justin Herbert, though. He is 85% rostered. He's 41% started with Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Atlanta coming up. So fired up for him, Dave Richard? Justin Herbert?
I think you should be. He's got those matchups, and certainly as at minimum a bye week quarterback makes all the sense in the world.
He got really lucky with the touchdowns.
Very lucky with the touchdowns.
164 yards passing.
Yeah.
Through 18 times.
He also had a touchdown dropped by Disley. So is there any question if you're looking at your waiver wire and it's Gus Edwards and Audric Estime? Who is it is a question. Who would you pick up?
Estime.
Same.
I guess it's Estime. I don't know if they're ever going to throw in the ball, so I don't know how he is going to be any good.
They're not throwing Gus the ball.
No.
I got to be honest with you.
The one thing I guess if you're going to play it out is if Dobbins misses time and Javonte misses time, who's got the more upside?
Right. That might be Gus.
I would say Gus.
Definitely Gus.
Yeah. I really wanted to be right about Quentin Johnston after I argued about him all week, and he caught the touchdown. I was a little disappointed. He didn't have a good game, really, but,
it's 18 passes.
Yeah, I know. Nobody.
Wait, what's our bet? Johnston versus Leggett?
Yeah.
Dave and I have Johnston, you have Leggett, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Not
when you come down? Thanksgiving?
Uh-huh.
All right, cool.
Okay, let me know where you want me to take you for lunch. Philadelphia 34, Dallas 6. First of all,
where Jared Goff throws good passes again.
Are we thinking about Trey Lance maybe starting for the Cowboys?
He
Yay.
should.
That'd be horrible for Lamb.
Yeah.
By the way,
Mm-hmm.
can they please not
Buy some blinds.
not say here we go because Dak says here we go?
Yeah, here we go.
No, Lance at least sounded like Dak. Cooper Rush, here we go. It was so bad. It was so terrible.
I didn't hear Cooper Rush do it. I did hear Lance do it at the end. Buy some blinds. Yes, you're referring to CeeDee Lamb being blinded by the sun coming in.
They have curtains. They just don't close them, right?
Well, it's curtains for that team, so it doesn't really matter either way.
But Dak is done.
Dak is done.
I don't know. It would become better if they win a few here. Nah, he's done.
No, he told Tracy.
He's out for the year?
He's getting second opinion. That's not official. He's getting his second opinion on Monday, and if he gets the same result, he's having surgery on Wednesday.
It's gonna be a great.
Sweet.
Speaking of Thanksgiving, what a game!
Oh, Giants-Cowboys? Is that what it
Adam's
is?
gonna be cheering so hard for the Giants to win that game.
Oh, Drew Lock versus Trey Lance. Wow.
And ruin their draft pick.
I'll be three plates of corn souffle in at that point. I won't have the energy to root for anyone.
Man, I hate to be your toilet the next day.
Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. We talked a lot about Lamb. What do you think this all means for Rico Dowdle, who this is the one game we actually started recording. I apologize for this before the games and this game ended, so I don't have the stats in front of me. But Rico Dowdle, 12 carries for 12 for 53. I got it. 12 carries for 53 yards, 3 catches for 3 yards for Rico Dowdle here. What does this all mean for him?
It was a fun week.
I think he's going to be around 15 touches every week. We know he's capable of catching the ball out of the backfield, but this offense is going to be brutal. So
it was a terrible matchup. It was terrible. You know, Dak could have been playing, and Rico Dowdle would have had a bad day. He would have been better, but he would have had a bad day. So Houston's defense, we'll see how they come out of this game against the Lions.
Then Washington, and then the Giants on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean he's a flex. You know, it would be better with Dak. He'd probably be a low end number 2 running back. And again, with the teams on a bye and injuries that we're dealing with, you know, you like to see a little bit more work in the passing game. That was nice to see the previous couple of games, and that disappeared today. And please get Ezekiel Elliott off the field. That fumble was so dumb.
And then they gave him the ball again.
Yes,
the 6-yard line. You know, so there was a little bit of Zeke mixed in on goal to go situations, or a little bit of Dowdle, but that was frustrating and weird. All right, Javonte Smith, horrible game. 2 catches, 14 yards on 3 targets. They threw 22 times in this game, but Hurts threw 20 times. I don't think Smith was out there when Kenny Pickett was out there. So do we dismiss this as, look, they barely threw the ball, or is this, Dallas Goedert's back, Javonte Smith is a number 3 receiver again?
Both. I don't think number 3 receiver, but I don't think he's top 15.
I think I had him 26 this week. I think 26 is probably where he belongs.
Mm-hmm. Like, this exposes what his floor is when you know what his ceiling is. So calling him a boom bust flex is totally reasonable.
They were picking on Carson all day long.
Yeah, the cornerback opposite Diggs.
Yep.
Yeah. And would you rather have, you think, Rashad White or Devontae Smith rest of season?
Depends what you need.
I'll say Smith.
All right, last game, Jets and Cardinals, 31-6 Arizona. 4 points for Aaron Rodgers. Tough game. Schedules gets better.
Cardinals are good, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How are we feeling about Breece Hall? 10 carries, 52 yards, 4 catches, 31 yards. What, he hasn't scored now in 3 straight games. What are we thinking?
He gets the Colts. You're starting him.
Still buying low.
I'm not loving
him. Go on. Dave, go on.
I'm just not loving him. I don't know what else you want me to say.
No explanation needed. James Conner or Breece Hall rest of season?
Hall.
Connor.
Like, the schedule is so good.
Go on.
I think this Jets team is toast.
Okay. Connor, though, just to point out, he had 5 catches today. So he's got 2, 4, 2, 2, 3, and 5 catches in his last 6 games. That's pretty solid. I don't think it's going to be Breece Hall level, but that's pretty good. And then if you're still making trades, would you use this as a chance to sell high on Marvin Harrison Jr. or no? No thanks, guy.
Hey, 5 targets. Good game. Broke the trend.
It's true.
I want to see what his ADOT was.
I think it was right around 16.5.
That seems very specific.
You can sell him if you want to. Going into our bye week.
I just guessed a number.
It was not. Ready for this? It was 7 yards.
Oh, look at that. Oh, I'm the Jets. Sauce Gardner. He's so great, but we're never going to put him on the best receiver on the team.
Is he so great?
That's what I said. Look, go back to what I said on Friday or Thursday when we talked about this game. Like this,
you said it for 2 years.
These defenses. Well, no, he's really good. I don't think he's having a very good season. He can't tackle. Can't tackle. Yeah, but their defense is overrated. Their defense cannot stop a good offense. It's been this way last year, this year. It's not always true, but it's often true, especially on the road. All right, that's it for today's show. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk about Detroit and Houston on Beyond the Box Score tomorrow. Not sure if we'll have Jacob. We're hoping to have Jacob. Jacob's not feeling well. Everybody send your thoughts out to Jacob. Tell him to feel better so I don't have to do as much work for tomorrow's Beyond the Box Score. All right, for Dave, for Jamey, for Heath, for Thomas, I'm Adam. Have a great night, everybody. Hope you had a great week 10.